I don't think.
Live.
Oh, it's showtime, folks.
Woohoo!
We're back. Sorry, we had a little bit of a technical malfunction backstage, guys, but MonsterFam Live is back. It's Chuco's Powerhouse Cinema here with New Heya. You want to say hello?
Howdy, howdy.
Chunky Code
Hello.
Monkey.
What's up, everybody?
Our friend Jack, who's new to the channel. How you doing, Jack? And Mo. Our favorite
Hey.
Mo. And we're going to talk about I Know What You Did Last Summer, which was a first-time watch for me.
May I ask,
and it wasn't
may I interrupt you for a second? Who has the bird? I guess
Who's got a bird?
Yeah.
It's not me.
Jack, you have a bird?
Yeah.
What my
Can
bird?
you, can you mute your mic when you're not talking so we don't hear the bird the whole time?
Oh, he probably auto-tunes that bird out.
I'm like, tweet, tweet,
Yeah.
tweet, tweet.
I wasn't going to say nothing. Jack, it's okay. You know,
No.
I didn't know.
Yo, don't mess with me and birds. I made my mom get rid of the birds she moved into this house with. Chunky, we're going off topic immediately.
That is the
it.
fastest
Yeah,
off topic
great.
we've ever, just like right off the guardrails, man.
As the segue,
Absolutely.
it was like, I know what you did last summer. Hey, Jack, you got a bird? That was like so quick.
Summertime, birds chirping. It caught him.
Hey, here, whenever you're on Chuco's channel, it doesn't matter. You guys talk about birds. I think we've talked about conspiracies once. We had a 3.5-hour live stream for Christmas where we just talked about God knows what at that point. It was just talk about things here. But the main reason we're here is to talk about that we know what somebody did last summer, which is something that I have avoided for my entire life for some reason, and now I know why I kind of avoided it. I know you said not to say anything mean, Frank, but
Not in the server. I have no control of your channel.
Yeah, it's
You're
your
not-
channel, Chuco.
But I will control your speech in the server.
there you go. Yeah, wow. So we'll get into everybody's thoughts, but I guess what's y'all's experience with it? Because like I said, this is my first viewing. I don't mind talking about my opinions on it, but I don't want to speak on the legacy of this film. So I don't know, Frank, do you want to kick us off?
No, I want to ask why you avoided it. Did you avoid it, or you just never got around to it?
Well, it was a little bit of both. For some reason, the title for me seemed way too long. All right, so I don't know, when I hear a movie's got this long title, I'm just like, there's something about it that. So it's kind of like the house on any of the houses on Amity
Floor came out recently.
Anything like that, where it's like. Exactly. Anything where it's just like this super, like more than 2-3 weeks.
I know you're the TikTok generation. You're like, this movie is more than 3 minutes and the title has 6 words.
Absolutely. If I'm reading the synopsis, if I'm reading the synopsis of the film as the title, nah, bro, I'm gonna try to avoid as much of it as I can for a while. So anyway, it was that part of that reason, and then the other reason was just. It was one of those movies that was on the back burner. And I always said, I got to watch this at some point. I know it's like one of the movies that people talk about in the horror community, but I never got around to it. I have seen Jennifer Love Hewitt yell in the middle of the road more than once, you know, but I just never seen it in the context. It still didn't make any sense, but you know,
in person,
it's fine. No, I wish I had seen that.
So why?
Just yelling in the middle of the road, Jennifer Love Hewitt just randomly yelling. Yeah.
Is it my birthday?
It's like, what's going on here? Why is she here? First of all, why is she outside? No. But I guess what's y'all's experience with the movie? Because like I said, it's new to me. So I was just catching everything to me was brand spanking new. I was like, oh, look, it's
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
It's Sarah Michelle Gellar. And
So like you said in the chat in the MonsterFam Discord server, which everyone should join that's watching. I watched it in theaters. Scream was like one of the very first horror movies I saw in theaters because I was like 12 or so. And then I really fell in love with Kevin Williamson. I started watching Dawson's Creek. I Know What You Did Last Summer came out, and like I said in the chat, like it really fed on this whole like CW era popular actor thing where like like I was just the right age to be like looking up to these characters in a way, like, oh, this is so cool what they're doing. And then like it was, even though it wasn't like a slasher in the traditional sense where the killer's like killing from moment one, it was more of like a whodunit, less a whodunit, like intrigue, like mystery, like a slow burn mystery in a way. But you still got like some nice cleavage that kept you like as a 13-year-old boy, like, oh yeah, I could watch this. So that's I guess my like wrapped up feelings about that movie.
What about you, Chunky? Is there anything specifically that you have with this movie? Any memories of it? Anything like that?
Not really any like super specific memories. I didn't see it in theaters. That was a rental for me. Because I was at that age where I didn't have like adult autonomy yet, and I didn't really go out a whole much. So I didn't get to go to the movies a lot during that time frame. But yeah, so we rented this movie, and it was all right. It was everywhere during the time though. Like every TV channel you watched back then, they were always talking about this movie right before and after it came out. Like the marketing for it was everywhere. And the fact that it had all these well-known actors and actresses that were like peak introduction for a lot of them, or they had already done a couple of shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and things like that. They had already done a good bit of that. So a lot, like I said, there's just a lot of star power in this. And a lot of these people were like the top actors and actresses at the time for the younger generation. So that's one of the biggest things I remember about it, just being everywhere. And then it started getting made fun of course, all over the place too. It's just like there were parodies of it. There were jokes about it. It was done on comedy skits and things like that. It was just like, and the concept was, for the time, it was kind of a newish story, kind of, just put in with a bunch of young star power. So I think that's one of the reasons why it got as much attention as it did.
What about you, Mo?
I did see this in theaters whenever it first came out. It was probably even before, to throw a little more, little VIP movie status for me, before it even came out, probably at 3 o'clock in the morning, smoking cigarettes in the middle of a theater. It's, to me, iconic because I am a Buffy nerd. I own every single episode of Buffy on DVD. I was definitely a Dawson's Creek nerd. I even dabbled in the Party of Five before it got weird. So they were all prominent young stars to kind of mimic their fashion, because I'm a fashionista, and to mimic their whole, like the whole 16-year-old attitude of a girl back then, like almost female empowerment, but still with a little bit of whore added to it.
Right on. What about you, Jack? Is this how much experience have you had with I Know What You Did Last Summer?
I kind of rented it myself too. It was one of those fucking just one of those movies I never really went to the theater to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those, like, I got used to the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and then Scream came out, and it was like, yeah, Scream 1's okay, And then he just started carving them out, and it was like,
Well, are you implying that? So you just said Nightmare and then Scream. That's Wes Craven directed each of those, and then you said he started carving them out, as if I'm just trying to follow the logic.
Well, it was like just broad, that kind of poor, because you had like, okay, I meant they.
So it just felt like
a generic turnout of these kinds of horror movies. Yeah.
Gotcha. And it was, I agree with that. Urban legend. So after Halloween, Friday the 13th, and then like suddenly you had the whole slasher thing of the 80s, and you had a billion of them. My Bloody Valentine, and April Fool's Day, and Happy Birthday to Me, and all this nonsense that no one really particularly remembers except for us. And then same thing with Scream. After Scream came out, you had Urban Legend, and you had I Know What You Did Last Summer, and you had disturbing behavior and all these things that were part of that like follow-up where they are generic. They are just generic, kind of like whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I guess for its time too, we're talking about how it's generic. At the time, it really wasn't generic. It kicked off the generic kind of stuff. So it was one of those things where now we have like the privilege, I guess, of being able to look back at these movies and kind of just like, joke around about it. But I think you were saying where it's like that CW kind of feel to it. It's getting transferred to film, and at the time it's brand new, so it doesn't seem like that big of a. It's like a bigger budget for that CW star cast. You know what I mean? For them to go and do that horror movie that they want to do, for them to get onto film, and I think that's where one of the problems lies with this movie for me. It's where I think they try to give each of the stars an individual kind of like spotlight. We talked about it a little bit off air.
About the last 15 minutes where Jennifer Love Hewitt disappeared, and like you just get Sarah Michelle Gellar running to her sister and getting chased down the alleyway and stuff, instead of like having the story be more, So there's just a spotlight on one character at a time. I get what you're saying.
On one, yeah. So that's that. I think you see that, but like we said, it wasn't generic at the time. It was just now looking back, it's a little cheesy. You're like, oh, okay, they were trying their best. They probably didn't have a huge budget. Oh, we got a new guest. Sorry to stop the stream of conversation here, but we got Chris.
Mysterious mutant.
Wow.
Yes. All right.
It's a party now.
Listen.
So now we got to get your input on I Know What You Did Last Summer.
I knew you all would have to have a drink and everything.
What?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
You said that.
No. There you go. I got
when's the first time you saw I Know What You Did Last Summer, Chris?
I actually saw it when it came out in theaters.
And what was the experience?
I greatly disappointed.
You didn't like it at the time?
No.
What?
Because
Why not?
all right, listen, am I echoing to anybody?
No, you're good.
No.
Okay.
No, you're fine.
Good. I am, so I have to deal with like 10 voices, but all right.
Maybe take your AirPods out if you're using them. Or
you know what it is? I think I'm watching on YouTube and
that's
here.
That's like when you call into the radio station and you have the radio on.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But all right, I'll deal with it. You have to remember something. I'm a little older, so for me to go see those movies, it was like I'm used to Jason at that time. So like for me to come up with the next franchise, like I'm expecting gore. I'm not expecting somebody to have to survive because of they're in a TV show or because of this one. And this one has to be, like there's all kind of circumstances going on that really weren't going on when I was growing up. 80s, somebody got killed. You had one final girl and certain things. But now you have LL Cool J surviving H2O. It's around the same time. You have the other Deep Blue, whatever it was. He gets eaten by a shark and all of a sudden he pulls up and he's there. Now, it's like part of their contract. They get to survive the movie. So it was a weird time for me, Even Scream caught some strays for it, but I respect the first Scream. I love the first Scream, but they kind of got that vibe too a little bit from me.
Yeah.
But
personally, I've always been distant with the Scream franchise myself, just because of that reason. I always feel like, okay, it wasn't. And then for some reason, whenever the new Scream started coming out, and then they, spoiler alert, they off Dewey, then I got all upset. Even though I'm a casual fan, but they just off Dewey like that, and they expect me to believe that. I was like, really? Yeah. Don't get me started with that. And that's me being a casual kind of Scream just guy, but.
Oh yeah, I was hysterically crying in theaters when that happened. I was like on the floor sobbing.
Yeah. Well, it was like, But all that's to say though, with this one, I could totally feel like that kind of generic thing, that the vibe that we were talking about, and it wasn't the world building, I guess, wasn't bad. The premise isn't bad as far as like, oh, they hit somebody and somebody's kind of, just trying to pick them off, right? But even then, like the reveal of who the killer is and all that stuff, it didn't really hit any of my horror buttons. It was just kind of like, okay, it was just this guy walking around, just offing them. So like, there was not much there for me to kind of really hang my hat on.
I think you missed part of it. It was like I'm trying to piece it together, but like someone had committed suicide on the cliff, and like
yeah,
there's like some backstory. Like I'm like whatever. I also like get high and don't pay attention sometimes, but like, it wasn't some random guy. Can anyone explain it better than me?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
none of us know. We all just watched that movie, but
listen. And I couldn't remember it from the first time I watched it. Whoever committed suicide, it was their dad.
Their dad, right? Yeah, I thought it was their dad.
Whoever,
yeah.
So-
Yeah, it's the dad. It's the dad of the the person.
Is it the guy that's right in the No, but it's like right in the opening, right? You see a guy that looks like he's gonna do something. He's like drinking and he's sitting on the edge of the cliff.
Right.
Is that the guy?
so he thinks so the person that the four of them killed caused the killer's daughter to commit suicide. So what it sounds like is he wanted to kill that person, and he's pissed that they did. And now he's killing them because he's like, you motherfuckers killed David. He's responsible for my daughter's death. I was
supposed to do that.
I called dibs.
Yeah,
I called dibs. That's fucked up.
I mean,
Yes,
they tried, like I said in the chat, they tried. Like they set up the tip. They tried to build a typical, another villain, maybe another franchise, like another Jason. Far from it, but that's what you can see. That's what they were going for. Repeat, have this guy, some kind of typical look. But it just, I don't know. It was like you said, it was just too generic, and horror fans pick up on that. I mean, it's going to have its core, it's going to have your different generations who grew up with it at different times. So that's what they know, and that's what they grew up on. So they're not really looking for something, maybe more extreme, more hardcore, or something. Somebody's watching it for a few years longer, expects, out of something like that. But they tried.
And
I don't know. I give them an effort.
No, and you have a point though, because it's also part of that transition period that Frank was talking about, where you went from the 80s slasher, where you had this big old, like, violent killer. You always had this big, like, was it like Jason, and we talk about Michael,
Right.
Freddy, and they were all brutal killers, And then you get to the 90s, where you kind of have like this different kind of approach to who your killer is going to be. You see Ghostface, and it's these two dudes that are just running around in a Halloween mask, and they're kind of smaller in stature. They're playing tricks on their victims. You see the transition. I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's just a guy that puts on a kind of trench coat that it could be anybody, any kind of feel, rather than
Reed, right?
What's that now?
Tara Reid, an urban legend. You're like, Tara Reid could be the killer?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like it could be any one of us. It's not the spawn of hell jacked freaking 6'5" dude.
Right, this brute force of terror and killing you, and something that's really going to scare you. It's like psychological. It could be the angry, jealous friends, or something like that. It gets in there. I don't know, but I mean, I'm not going to trash it. It is.
You
what
already
it is,
have trashed it.
Yeah, you are, and I'm going to
listen.
continue
You could
to.
delete all. You could edit all that.
It's pretty. It's pretty. It's date movie worthy for that kind of girl that likes horror but hasn't really dabbled their complete foot in it. Nice. It's pretty.
And who those people are young adults. This is like and I think it's based on a young adult book. Like, I don't know I don't know. I mean, it's based on a book, definitely, and I don't know what age the book is based on, but it's like a Goosebumps or whatever. It's like it is a young adult movie. It's not a horror movie for like seasoned horror vets or whatever. Like,
Right. That's what it is. Right. Exactly. And then you had
Chucky, you were
Brandy,
gonna
right?
say
And
something
follow
about
up.
that.
The only thing I was going to say, going back to Tara Reid, is Tara Reid has killed enough movies on her own.
Yeah.
Bless
up
her
there.
heart.
That's
up
my
there
joke
with
for
the
the next 10 minutes. So continue.
No. But even then, though, like you make a good point where it's kind of like not built for the horror fan. It's built for like the horror fan that's getting into horror movies and stuff like that. But even going back and talking about how they're all coming from like a show, I think where this movie kind of falters a little bit too is that they don't have enough of that. If you're gonna kind of be approaching your film that way in the dialogue of like kind of like the CW kind of love interest stuff, because you get Jennifer Love Hewitt, right, and she's supposed to be in love with what is it, Freddie Prinze Jr. And then I still don't, they kind of just like throw that in there. They're like, we broke up and now we like still kind of like each other, and then it just completely disappears until Freddie Prinze Jr. reappears at the end on the boat. It's like, come on, come with me. It's like,
you will love each other forever.
Like it was like such
soulmates.
Right. Like why? Like why? You know?
Yeah, it's kind of just like we also have to have love in this movie, so let's just kind of
here it is.
Here you go. Yeah.
Love conquers all.
There you go. Absolutely. Just, come with me if you want to live. He gives her the hand and then she throws it away thinking it's him. It wasn't enough, which is weird. It's weird to say there wasn't enough of the little drama that you want, I guess, in that situation. It was just kind of thrown in there like an afterthought.
Well, they didn't build those characters. They didn't build that up in the beginning. You had to do something in the beginning to create some kind of, bond between them besides just some silly, corny shit, for any of that to work,
I was wondering what happened in the book, and it looks like they were not dating in the book. So that was an addition for the movie. Or actually, and I could be wrong. I'm reading this really quickly, but yeah. So the book is a young adult novel. So just to point that out, like it's all supposed to be for kids or whatever.
Right.
So, like, from that point of view, like if we're reviewing the movie like with that perspective, like I think it kind of like makes you like maybe appreciate like it can allow you to appreciate what it did, even if you don't like if it's not for you or whatever,
Right.
Like it brought a whole new generation into horror.
It did, right. That whole, what did that, 97, right? So Scream, I think, was 96. This was like, what, the second one of those?
It was less than a year later. It was like 7 months later, and then Scream 2 came out like 2 months after this. It was like an amazing year for Kevin Williamson. Scream, I know, there was Scream 2 all within 12 months.
Yeah, so, it did what it had to do for that purpose. And there's still a whole, on social media, you see a lot of people love the movie, so it is what it is.
No, I was a little busy in '97, so I don't remember doing much.
Diapers and shit.
I wasn't here. Yeah, I can't. But I can't see how you guys say that. It just was a new kind of like life force into the horror genre, especially because I think by the late 80s, the kind of slasher trope, they were already starting to go to space, weren't they? Most of the slashers, I know Jason X didn't. Was that in the 90s?
94?
2000.
Yeah,
it was Jason X. So.
Yeah, but Jason X was like Leprechaun.
Jason X was 2003.
Oh yeah.
Hellraiser.
Leprechaun was.
Hellraiser.
Kind of earlier.
Yeah,
Hellraiser.
I think post 2000 was when things really started going into space. They're just like, we've tackled every other genre or setting we can do. Let's go to space.
Let's all go. Let's all go to space.
But like most of the slashers of the 80s were starting to phase out a little bit. What, mid 90s, like 94, 95?
So what happened was like in like 87, 88, you had like this like amazing output of like sequels or whatever. It's like Halloween and Nightmare and Friday all had sequels all at the same time. And then from like 89, 90, 91, 92, like nothing happened. Like there's a 4-year period there, end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s. And then you got Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Jason Goes to Hell in like 92, 93, 94 era. And that's what killed it all. Because those two came out and they were such while Wes Craven's New Nightmare is amazing now in retrospect, they both bombed so heavily that's kind of what killed the whole vibe. Now we were just like, slashes are done. They're never coming back. No one even likes Jason anymore. And so then you had 4 years between that, 3 or 4 years, whatever it was, until Scream. And then Scream had
brought it back.
a whole new era of slashers, you know?
Yeah.
To
But
teach
Scream
you
came
know?
back hard, you know, especially that intro. The intro of Scream was like a reintroduction. It felt like to old school horror was back, you know, but it was a little different, you know. But that's why I feel like the first one, I respect the first Scream. I enjoyed that. But then it kind of, like we said, then it became, you know, this whole other joke
Yeah.
and
No, I'm
Friends
with you.
and all whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, and not to mention too that there was a flip in kind of the way horror movies were presented in this time frame, because 80s slashers, of course, were known for being, you know, violent gore fests, you know, things like that, and didn't really have a whole lot of plot and substance and stuff like that in most cases. And Scream, moving forward from there, kind of introduced cerebral horror movies where you
Right.
had a lot of thought put
Mhm.
into them. You had really good plots and characters and everything, and you were light on the violence compared to the 80s. You know, and of course during that time frame, of course, the ratings board and everything else, there's constant complaints about movie content and everything. And you even hear stories about, you know, that early 90s phase where like Friday the 13th had to fight MPAA cuts constantly.
Oh yeah.
They have things taken
Mhm.
out. I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street was a victim of it too. So like, and then all of a sudden people are coming forward with these movies that that can be considered horror because of their elements, but they lack that excessive violence, and those are a lot more marketable.
Right. Exactly.
The machine can pump out a lot more of
Yeah.
them, and they deal with less protesters or people complaining and writing letters to their newspaper editor. Like that's effective.
Mhm.
You know, things of that nature. You know, I'm looking right here. I Know What You Did Last Summer has a budget of $17 million, and it
Wow.
made $125.3 million in the box office.
Right.
Yeah.
That right
Perfect.
there is,
Right.
is what it is. It's like it's
Yay.
a good mystery, good plot, light on the violence, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was so successful. Not to
Right.
mention the star power. The star power did quite a bit for it too.
That box office return is still considered great today for a horror movie. Something like Smile
Yeah.
is 130.
Oh yeah.
Something. That was huge in the 90s. Like
Yeah, I
that
need to
was
see
like
what this number is in today's numbers with inflation.
because the highest grossing slasher is the 2018 Halloween, and it made like 280 million or something. We could probably say, like, adjusted for inflation, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or maybe probably the original Halloween, obviously, is the highest grossing one. But yeah, it's definitely a huge number.
What's up there? That's big.
Well-
That for horror, that's huge.
No, yeah, and I guess I was gonna try to say, what do you guys think about like the phases of horror as they've gone on? So we talked about the 80s slasher a little bit. I Know What You Did Last Summer falls into that kind of like that 90, what we say like the 95, 96 kind of the cerebral. How do you think that's shaped the box office kind of approach going forward? Because Chunky brought up a good point where now I've seen more and more, and it's a little bit annoying, where you can see the formula of this is going to be cheaper to produce. We're going to make this movie cheaper. We're going to get a lot of money back. So how do you think they just kind of faded into that where they're just seeking the money out versus putting out really good horror? Or do you think there's still some people that are still going for good horror regardless of the money? Because I've seen a couple of, you know, I know last year, what was it? In a Violent Nature, I think was that a couple of years ago. And that one wasn't really thrown around everywhere. And I could see them trying to go for something a little bit more brutal again.
Right.
But at the same time, that was super low budget. And I don't know how the return did, because for me, that was hard to get through. But then you also see like the next Conjuring that you know is going to make millions because everybody's already in the door for it. So I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, like you said earlier, they've perfected what they want to put out for a certain money, you know, for a certain audience, and it's trimmed down, but it all depends on what makes money. Like you would need like a fluke movie, like something that maybe they greenlit that they did begrudgingly, and that has to make a ton of money. And whatever makes money is what they'll continue making. You have to get lucky with like the perfect movie that's kind of brutal, old school, whatever, and it has to make a lot of money. And then they'll just follow that trend. But if movies like in the formula of I Know What You Did Last Summer and those kind of movies that are made to make money for a whole audience, maybe you could get younger kids in there. It's not as brutal. Parents will take the family, whatever. If that movie makes a ton of money, you're not going to get the the little more hardcore horror movie. It basically comes down, I guess, to what makes the studio back the most money, you know. And it seems like Blumhouse has perfected the art of reeling the
Right.
old school fans in, but still aiming at a different crowd. You know, it's they perfected it. I mean, these people, they make money to do that, to get you in and sell tickets. But I don't think we return. I mean, in different ways. Your independent films are the ones that kind of go for that different hardcore, more of a feel, you know. But your mainstream is, I don't know, it's kind of softened up.
Well, nowadays, especially the bigger studios, and when you really think about like the big studios, you know, Columbia, 20th Century Studios, things like that, they need to have multi-level returns.
Oh yeah,
on their investments. Right. So that really is one of the reasons why a lot of horror films go independent, or they go with really small production and they get limited releases, and then sometimes they'll make it back on streaming, sometimes they won't, but still, or they sell to Shudder, you know, or things like that, because it's like, we can't get a big studio to agree with us, because they want like 20x returns on this, and it's not going to, and unfortunately horror is not going to provide that for a lot of people, unless you tap dance that line between PG-13 and R rating, because then you can get the young adults in there, you can get the tweens and the 15 and 16-year-olds, because I remember there was a YouTube group a long time ago called Key of Awesome that used to do song parodies. And they did a song parody one time about the Hunger Games. And one of the lines they said in that song was, young adults run the economy. And that's one of the reasons why the Hunger Game was so successful. And they're not wrong. I mean, parents make the money, they spend it on their kids. Right. So you send middle schoolers and kids, you give them a movie that either speaks to them or makes them feel like they're a little bit more of an adult for watching it. And that's what's going to get, and that's been tried and true since the 50s, 60s, something like that.
And you know what's crazy? Young adults run the economy, and then they're nostalgic for that thing forever now. And so now you're 13, and now you're like, I'm nostalgic for I Know What You Did Last Summer because I happened to be 13 at the time. And so, or whether it's Transformers or like whatever, and so now you're going to spend money on t-shirts of Transformers when you're 50, and so if they could catch you, they run the economy, because if they could catch you with these right things at the right time, they have you forever.
Right.
Well, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, well, another movie I feel like is a great example of that is the It remake. Both of those. I mean, those made a ton of money, you know, and that kind of brought back, okay, let's put some effort and make a quality film, you know, more serious tone. It doesn't have to be, just because it's horror, it doesn't have to be, you know, silly plot or whatever. I feel like they put a lot into those It movies, and that's why they were, you know, successful. The second one kind of was, I guess, a little drop off, but it set a tone, you know, it made money, and horror kind of went that way. And I think that's why we got that more serious Halloween reboot, you know, that trilogy where they make it a more serious, but that doesn't work with certain movies. That's the problem, you know. You can't pretty up and make too clean of a horror, like a Halloween movie or something like that.
Do you know what my theory is about what started the newest trend of horror themes? So Halloween started the first trend in 1978, and then we got like a whole 80s thing, and then Scream started its trend in the 90s. And I think It Follows started the trend in like 2014 that ended up occurring, where it was like super serious, The Witch, Hereditary, like
oh my god, and you're right, like
I think It Follows really started that whole Babadook was the next year, like and it created this whole thing, and it ended just around the time Halloween 2018 came out, and now we're living in the back end of that golden age. Actually, we're actually living in the late 80s version. We're living in like the garbage version right now. We're getting a lot of good stuff, don't get me wrong, but we're actually getting like we're living in the back end of like a really good period that just happened.
Right. I agree.
It's a lot. It's
No.
a lot more independent right now, which means that there's lower production values compared to like the 2018 Halloween. So yeah, it's the back end of the 80s
Mm.
where people are just like, oh, we can make anything, and someone somewhere will pay for it, you know, and that's why they're, oh my gosh, it started raining. It's but that's kind of the trend of what's happening now, is just there's a lot of independence and there's a lot of things that just don't get seen, you know, because of the ad money marketing machine just being so saturated with it. But also on the back end of a series of elevated horror too, going back into the Hereditaries and the Midsommar and all those other films, those ones that are just the Strange Little Darling, you know, Blink Twice, that kind of horror that just I've kind of lost my
Screws with your brain.
Yeah, it's like supernatural. It's weird. It's different. It can jump from supernatural to thriller to slasher. You know,
both his brain and
gory.
his computer broke at the same time. That's
Oh no, I know.
I think he said as soon as he said it started to rain, I got worried about him for a second. But
oh my God.
Before we continue, though, I do want to acknowledge, and I want to say hello to Tennis. He wants to say, how are we doing? First of all, is everybody doing okay?
Everybody's doing okay.
Great.
Use a beer.
Great. Well, it's good to see you, Tennis Reaper. And yes, this is a Chucky. That's a good guy behind me, and you can't keep a good guy down. So I had to put him back up. It was a little. I just picked him up yesterday, so figured he could join us in the horror talk, you know. But I guess Chucky will jump back in, or he'll let us know. I'll go ahead and just
remove his frozen face for now, I guess, right?
Sorry, Chucky.
Sorry, we'll see you in a minute.
We'll see you in a minute. I'm sure you'll let us know. No, but although I wanted to go back and hit on that nostalgia that you were talking about, how if they catch you right at a certain time, they're just going to always be able to sell you that ticket. Because I remember when I was a kid, how taboo. I remember seeing the cover of Halloween H2O in a DVD case that my aunt would like hide in the back of all the other movies.
Okay.
And it, you know, you would see Michael's face in the knife, and you'd see all the characters. And every time you pick it up, they would be like, "No, don't watch that. That's a scary movie. Like, don't put that on." And I just remember being small enough to be like, "Well, I want to see it. Like, why is it scary? Like, what's going on with this movie?" And after that, I was just hooked on Halloween. Like, after that, that was my slasher. That's why I'm a Michael fan, big time, because I just remember at that time them saying this is, and H2O is probably one of the tamest of the Halloween franchise, you know?
Yeah, but it's a good movie. Because I like
it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's fun as well.
Hi.
He has returned.
There he is.
Do you remember what you're getting at, to let you finish your thought?
Not really. But I mean, you know, it does feel like the era we're in right now is heavy on the independence when it comes to horror, but studios are starting to pick it back up. You get Sinners this year. There was another Final Destination film and everything, so I feel like we're on another upswing when it comes to like big studio horror, and I think that's one of the better things about it. Also, I did run numbers. Let me see if I can pull this page back up.
Yeah, for modern interpretation.
Yeah, modern translation of I Know What You Did Last Summer. They did $17 million with $125.3 million box office in 1997. In today money, that is around $33.9 million for the budget and $250 million.
That's like what the Thunderbolts movie made. The new Marvel movie made like $250 million. That's, I mean, and it's considered a failure, but that's like huge.
It's considered a failure.
Well, for Marvel to do that, you know.
No, I know.
Big budget films need that to break even.
Billions, yeah.
It's insane. It's really insane. That would be a quarter.
And that speaks to so that's why it's such a cultural touchstone. It's because literally everyone saw it. Like everyone who was seeing movies back then saw it. Like, and because it's just like everyone who watched the end of Friends or like something like that. We had much larger cultural touchstones. I feel like back then we weren't as like scattered in our different streaming services and TV shows.
Yeah.
Divided.
As soon as you said that, that's what I was gonna say. Is that there's so much content out there as far as like in Netflix, you got your, what is it, Apple Movies, you got Paramount, you have all this stuff. Everybody's like, have you seen this on HBO? Have you seen this on Amazon? And not everybody could be on the same page. And back in that time where it's like everybody knew what was coming out this weekend, you know, you could go, everybody said, did you go watch the new Halloween? Did you go watch the new Scream? Did you see Friends last night? Stuff like that. You're right. I feel like not everybody's on the same page and can't really speak to their experiences as uniformly as you could back in like the early 2000s, late 90s.
Definitely.
I think we're
It's been
about
like
to
that
hit
for a
an
few
era.
years too.
I think we're about to hit an era where we're might be getting back to that, where there's where they're kind of compressing the amount of content spaces you have nowadays, especially you know, I'm sure we've all heard that HBO is splitting up, or Warner Brothers Discovery is splitting up. They're actually taking their streaming services and their TV studios and splitting them from the movie studios that they own. Yeah, well, yeah, because they also denied David Zaslav, who is the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery and an actual idiot. They denied him his CEO bonus too, which I thought was just fantastic, because he's been screwing up that company left and right. But they announced that they're splitting them, and they're actually killing a lot of their channels and cable offerings. They're killing a couple Cinemaxes, they're killing a couple like HBO Family and stuff like that. So I think we're getting to a point where maybe some of these streaming services or maybe some of these content offerings is going to get a little compressed, and they're going to start cutting the fat. And
yeah, you hope,
as they say, you know, God forbid we only have 5 channels, but still, you know, it's
they've all been
I don't
like
know
that
though. It's good.
A while. You
know? Go ahead, Chris.
HBO, they've all been like that, where they've all had, you know, like you said, they had 6. HBO has 10 channels, and it all has the same stuff. Nobody watches it. It's all spread out, and I don't know. Maybe they're still making money somehow down the line doing that, but it's just really weak. And most people are watching old stuff. Most people aren't going on there, and it doesn't matter if they have 15 channels. People go like this with the remote, and then they go stream whatever they want to watch. It's at a different time, you know.
Yeah, you know, for me, at least personally.
What'd you say?
What'd you say, Jack?
RoboCop 2's on. I'm watching RoboCop 2.
What's
great movie,
RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
Through what?
No, yeah. So, yeah. You're flipping through what, Jack?
If I'm flipping through cable and RoboCop 2's on, I'm definitely watching RoboCop 2 again.
Oh, because when it comes up, about it. Yeah, I thought you said you were watching it right now. I was like, I'm glad you're able.
That's what I thought.
I thought so too. I was like, oh, cool, Jack.
I'm boring the shit out of you,
Yeah, it's like he's just like, yeah, he's watching RoboCop 2. No. For me, at least in the last like, I don't know. I've seen it a little bit more apparent the last like 3-4 years, and I guess I see it with Marvel mostly. But it's just, you see that machine of like just generic, like we're gonna spit this movie out. We have these points we gotta hit. We're gonna use this much budget. Even if we hit the failure of 250 million, we've made our money, and everybody's locked in to watch the next one. You have to watch this so you can understand this, and they're always gonna do that kind of. I don't know, man. And I've seen people that are just caught up in it too. And there's nothing wrong with being a fan of Marvel, because I mean, I love. Don't get me wrong, I like to go watch the next Marvel movie. As well, right? But I know there's some people that are just locked on it still. And at some point, I just saw the machine. When I saw Brave New World, it was like they postered, you know, Red Hulk all over the place, you know, and they trying to get you in the Red Hulk for him to be in there for all of like 5 minutes, you know. It's stuff like that. And you see that with the marketing. You see that with the movies that they're putting out. I don't know. It bothers me.
Go back to a video shop in the 80s and look at any cover for any movie and be like, this movie looks amazing, and then watch the movie and tell me where any of those characters or monsters on the cover of the movie show up. There's a lot of them where you're like, what the heck? That cover totally lied to me.
13 Ghosts. I brought up 13 Ghosts before.
So this
where
is
it's like I saw the cover, yeah, and I thought it was gonna be crazy, and
it
it's
has like
like
a web
okay,
broken, shattered type cover, and there's I remember it a little.
But
yeah,
but to Chuko's point, it's definitely it feels like they don't care anymore. That's what
Oh
it
no,
like before they put more of an effort into they knew they were gonna make money. The whole trick and pony show was all there. But now it's like they don't care. They're like, we don't care that you don't like them. We don't care that this is what you know you don't want. We're going to put it out. We know you're going to go see the second one or the third one anyway. It just seems like there's just a lack of effort. It's like you
Yeah.
said, you're going to hit those quotas, and that's it, done. Like nobody's going to change. Like, oh well, maybe we're getting. I mean, in some cases, rare cases, you get where they listen to a fan base, but not even that might be manufactured. Like with the whole Snyder cut, like that whole even things where you demand a certain change. We're at a point where that could be all strategically marketed and to make more money, and we feel like we're making a change, but we're suckered right into it. We'll watch it all either way.
I think that they did save Sonic's teeth, though. I think that was real. I don't think that was fake. There's no way that they would release a shitty Sonic teeth. You know
when they
you're talking about the
Sonic.
Yeah,
I was about to ask if we're being conspiracy theorists on whether or not the Sonic the Hedgehog redesign was staged.
You were thinking the same
I've heard
thing?
that it's staged.
I've heard the conspiracy theories. I'm not sure that I believe them.
Okay.
Even that wasn't real. That's crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Are you telling me the moon landing's fake too? This is crazy.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Who
Well,
cares
the
about
point
the
where we
moon?
start
We're
to
talking
stem
about
off. Yeah.
and make sure that we can never monetize any of these videos.
No, that's not what we're here for. The
Let
love
me tell
of
you
the
about
game,
Walter
as I've always
Cronkite.
said. Whoa. Yeah, all right. We're gonna put there. No, but I've heard that. It's like, hey, listen, what do you guys think about the current state of the world right now? Don't
even answer that, right?
No, but in all seriousness, as far as that one though, Sonic one, I've heard that recently because there's a newer movie, and I can't remember for the life. Oh, Shrek. There's the new Shrek that they're gonna try to put out. They say that a lot of people that grew up with Shrek, like me included, hate the way it looks. I don't like the way the Shrek looks, and that everybody's like, we better do what they did to Sonic, to the Shrek animation. But that's when I started hearing about the Sonic conspiracy, that they put out an ugly looking Sonic just as a marketing ploy. But I don't know, man, because they released a trailer with that Sonic, didn't they? Like they were gonna run with that one. Yeah, I think they were gonna run tongue in cheek. They were gonna run with that one, but
really fast.
It's a tough call because they also the funny thing was the thing was like I'd be more inclined to believe it was done on purpose, like it was actually staged to do that fake outrage for it, if they didn't push the movie back 6 months.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if they had if they had squeaked out the change,
it was all part of the plan.
maybe it was. Like I said, there are smarter people than me that work in Hollywood, obviously.
Right.
So I mean, it's still highly possible, but I don't know that one. I don't know about that.
Maybe it's just to get everybody to talk about it. Like they say, as long as people are talking about it and discussing it, it's better than not talking about it.
That's
that really started
relevant.
that really happened in the 70s. That was when they kind of started the whole thing of, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And then that got bigger in the 80s, and then the 90s came along, and really it kind of started in the 90s where it was no press is bad press.
Right.
Where it doesn't matter what they're saying about your movie,
as long as
it doesn't matter what they're saying about it, just as long as they're talking about it. And then that just went to the stratosphere whenever social media became popular, because then it's like I'm getting engagement, I'm getting clicks, I'm getting numbers, regardless of whether it's positive or negative. Mm-hmm. I'm getting people to engage with me, and I'm part of the conversation. I'm part of the zeitgeist, or whatever you want to say for it. It really that's kind of what it boils down to nowadays, is just about getting attention. That's really what they're aiming for. Good or bad.
Good or bad.
Well, I guess just to circle it back to. Oh, go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
No. I was just going to circle it back to our film of discussion, right? Where did most of these stars go? Because I know most of them were like big in the early 2000s, and then you kind of just see them kind of fade off.
Freddie Prinze Jr. went off and became like
married.
they went to the sunset. They lived like this perfect, beautiful Instagram life. They're like the happiest couple in the world. Who gives a fuck? I'm sure they're producing shit. They're mega millionaires. They
probably.
I'm so I couldn't give a shit. I Instagram messaged them once. I was like, I'm gonna do an I Know What You Did Last Summer watch along. Can you guys come to my Discord and hang out with us? They never replied. I don't even mind.
That's fine. They
love it.
It's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking about that as I was watching it. I'm like, because they did that one together, and then they went and did the Scooby-Doo that I was saying that they did Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. So like, what do you ask? Like, see, even what you're asking, like, they have this huge career. I'm sure if you look at their IMDb's, they've totally
Freddie
done.
Prinze Jr. is involved in, in the
stuff.
world of the wrestling entertainment world. He's involved in there. Sarah Michelle Gellar, she did the newest Dexter spinoff. She was in that one.
She's
right. They do a lot of voice acting.
Part of the new Buffy now, obviously.
Yeah, they're really big voice actors. They got really big on the voice acting community, especially during Robot Chicken. They did a lot of Robot Chicken work.
You know who I was wondering about?
They were all Seth Green's homies. Yeah, so they're all just running around making money. Like, and if you think about just the legacy, like her having the legacy of Buffy, she could never do anything ever again and just make money. That, you know what I mean? Like, so like they're doing things for like the fact that they're just like, hey, cool, let's go do this project for our friend Seth. That sounds fun or whatever, you know.
And I didn't mean to imply it like they were washed.
Yeah, you'll find it.
No. But how about this? Who thinks about Ryan Phillippe? I was thinking about him during the movie. Like, where he at? What he doing?
No,
right.
And I even brought it up. That's when I told. Right. Yeah. No, and that's what I was saying. I think I was telling Chunky I was like, I think this guy came out in the Lincoln Lawyer. He's just a defendant in the Lincoln Lawyer, and then that's where he had that split off. Yeah. So that's why I was getting at. Yeah, I wasn't trying to take shots at Sarah Michelle Gellar. All right, it was just me saying like, oh, where are they now?
compared to the other ones, he has had a lot less movies. Ryan Phillippe, like Lincoln Lawyer,
at least one. Yeah.
He was in MacGruber.
Well, now where's the conspiracy in that? Who did he fuck over?
Or who didn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't he? Yeah. There you go.
Maybe he was the one. Who knows?
He made somebody mad. That's all. That's how you know they made somebody mad. Again, no press is bad press.
That's right.
Right. When you get cut off, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I've seen him in a couple of things, but as a kind of like a side character. At most, and or he's in a really bad movie as the star, which is, hey, it's more movies than I'm in, so I guess good for him. But that's what, he's kind of like a side character compared to like the others. And I know somebody was telling me that they're rebooting, or is there going to be a new I Know What You Did Last Summer? Is it completely new?
It's completely new, and it's being done by Amazon Prime, I believe. So like MGM Studios.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now because I don't have the detail. I have heard some rumblings about it. I'm like, is anybody coming back for it?
I've seen a trailer for it, I think, or I might have like glanced over it, looking for Jennifer Love Hewitt, and
there it is. It is coming out July 18th of this year.
Oh,
see, I planned this.
Right around the corner.
This was all part of my master. Yeah, it was part of my master plan to review I Knew What You Did Last Summer because I knew the new one was coming out.
It was coming.
It'll
be trending. It'll be trending.
Yeah.
Soon.
You knew what we were gonna do this summer.
Yeah, I knew what we did last summer. All right, and I knew what we're gonna do this one, and I still know what we're gonna do next summer.
Ooh.
So does Frank.
Bum.
Nice.
Well, I mean, we're getting to the hour mark, guys. So if there's anything else y'all want to talk about, that's great. If not, plug something you guys got going on. And if not, we can just jump back into the server where all the magic happens.
Yes.
Secret magic.
I love magic.
Yeah. Frank, you got anything to plug?
Well, I always do. Chunky, you got any Twitch things coming up?
Nothing really specific, but I do still stream on Twitch at least twice a week. We're currently going through a series of Carmen Sandiego games back from the Windows 3.1 era.
Nice.
Wow.
So yeah,
Lots
last
of
Thursday
fun.
we played We're in Time as Carmen Sandiego. So it's been fun to go back and look over some of those older games.
You got to get
Definitely.
some of the bottom banners prepared to pop up when people are talking, to be like, find Chunky's Twitch stream at, and then you'd have the link there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be better.
I gotta do some graphics. I gotta do some graphics. and
Yeah,
everything
you
else.
guys send them to me. Send them to me, and I'll put them on the bottom of the description if you have them. If you have any of those links or anything like that, just send them to me.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I will.
What about you, Frank? What you got going on?
Well, Jack and Chris and I are working on a comic called Nursing Home Dracula. And so we meet weekly, and we've been hanging out with an actor friend of ours, Bill Whedon, who's going to star in the movie when it comes out. So it's all based on a novel by Jack. So I'm going to just hand it over to him. Ask him what we got going on, Jack.
All right, Jack. Yeah, tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, like Frank said, I approached Bill like 3 years ago and was like, "Hey, you want to do this movie?" He's like, "Yeah," and then I ended up writing for it, just set the hype for it, and then we ended up doing Our Man Punk, and now we're picking back up in Nursing Home Dracula.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
excellent.
But
the
it's pretty
three of us-
dope.
It's super cool.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun
No.
with it. They're actually filming Our Man Funk right now with Bill Whedon, which is something that Frank and Jack wrote pretty much. In what? How much time did it take you to write that?
They finished filming. They did it a few weeks
3
ago.
months? 4 months?
Probably, yeah. Maybe a little more. And then they went through a bunch of editing processes afterwards or whatever. But the main chunk of it was 3 or 4 months. Yeah.
Right, but yeah, those guys sat there and came up with the idea and put together something, and it's going to be a movie, which is incredible.
That's excellent.
A lot
No,
of
that's
credit.
awesome.
Cat's coming in behind me.
Mo, what do you
Good.
got?
No.
Like, gonna scratch my head. That would be good. Look, you'll see blood squirt on the.
No,
Not the cat. My blood. It'll be.
I know.
Oh, okay. I thought you were worried about the cat.
No, I'm worried about you, baby boo.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That. I might
I
need
know.
it. So
I've got the same thing
anytime.
going on that I always do, y'all. Work, and a little bit of in and out of the Discord over at MonsterFam anytime that it can.
Absolutely.
Good.
Well, we
always love when
appreciate you.
see it.
Yeah, we always love it. But
Yeah.
with that, guys, I think we're pretty much all done up with I Know What You Did Last Summer. Any final thoughts?
No.
I hope
Anybody
no?
else?
we're all around next summer to say, do you remember when we did this last summer? It'll be so funny when we get to make that joke. That's my only.
Reunion.
Oh my God.
The remake of this live. Yeah.
Yes.
It'll be
Listen.
good. It'll be the ongoing trope.
Amen.
That's on you.
We'll be
That's
able to
on you,
review the-
Chuco.
It's on me. I'm going to be here next summer. You
Right.
can't keep a good guy
Better.
down. All
Ah!
right.
There you go.
All right, guys. Well,
All right.
thank you so much for coming to our live. If you're not already part of the Monster Fam and you guys want to join in on the horror community, make sure to join our Monster Fam server on Discord, where you can chat with one of us and kind of just pick our brains about horror. But we'll see y'all soon. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for coming,
Take
guys.
care, everybody. Take care.